Every screen on Earth went black at the exact same second. Then the sky filled with ships. An undefeated conqueror had arrived. 11 civilizations erased. 72 hours to surrender or disappear. But something went wrong. His ship didn't land. It crashed in a quiet mountain field in Colorado, where a boy was herding goats. The soldiers approached, weapons active, armor glowing. The boy didn't move, didn't flinch, just looked at them and said, "Can you turn that off? You're scaring the goats." So the king came himself. And in 90 minutes, with no weapons, no army, no plan, a kid with a wooden stick made the most powerful being in the galaxy apologize and leave. And the strangest part? He wasn't trying to win.
Every screen on Earth went black at the exact same second. Then the sky appeared, and it was already too late. No warning, no signal, no diplomatic channel opening with a courtesy tone. One moment the world was watching the news, checking phones, sitting in classrooms, driving to work, and the next, every device capable of displaying an image showed the same thing. Stars, then ships, a formation so massive the camera couldn't even frame it. Hundreds of vessels, each one larger than any skyscraper humanity had ever built, arranged in a geometric pattern that wasn't military. It was a statement. We are not hiding. We are not asking. We are here. At the center of the formation, one ship held position above all others. Dark, angular, blue-white light breathing through its hull, seems like something alive was inside it. And somewhere in the mountains of Colorado, a 10-year-old boy stopped walking, looked up at the sky, and tilted his head. He wasn't thinking about running. He was trying to understand what they wanted. Inside the central ship, standing at a viewport that stretched floor to ceiling, was Kaelion Virex. 8 feet tall, glass-pale skin with soft blue light pulsing underneath like a slow current. Eyes that glowed white-blue, no pupils, no warmth, no doubt. His floating cloak panels drifted in zero gravity. He didn't look at Earth like a conqueror admiring a prize. He looked at it the way someone looks at a form they need to sign. He spoke. One sentence. Every device on Earth delivered it simultaneously. You have 72 hours to formally surrender. After that, the choice is no longer yours. No introduction, no terms, no mercy clause, just a deadline. The screens went dark. And in every government building, every military command center, every coffee shop and school hallway where someone caught it, the silence that followed was the loudest thing humanity had ever heard.
The United Nations Emergency Assembly convened in 40 minutes. 40 minutes. That's how long it took to collapse every scheduled agenda, every diplomatic protocol, every procedural courtesy, and fill the chamber with the most powerful people on Earth, all of whom were trying very hard not to look as scared as they were. General Helena Morse stood at the podium. Uniform sharp, voice level, the kind of compose that takes decades to build and costs something to maintain. She didn't give them numbers. She gave them the truth. "We are outnumbered," she said, "and outclassed." The room didn't get louder. It got stiller. Their central vessel alone is 4 kilometers in length. Our communications teams made contact. The response was a repeat of the original broadcast. No negotiation channel. No terms. Just the deadline. Someone near the back was crying quietly. Someone near the front was already talking about orbital defense options, as if the formation overhead hadn't already made that conversation irrelevant the moment it appeared. Morse let them talk for 30 seconds. Then she spoke again. 72 hours. That was all she said. It was enough. 300 meters above, Kaelion Virex had already turned away from the viewport. He sat in his command chair, a structure that looked grown, not built, dark organic curves rising around him like a throne that formed itself to fit him. To his left stood Draven Rusk. 7 feet of armored muscle, dark tech plating fused to his frame, glowing red visor scanning readouts. He watched Earth with the focused impatience of someone who had done this before and found it boring every time. "They're assembling their leadership," Draven said. Kaelion didn't look up. They always do. Kaelion Virex did not wait well. Not because of impatience. Because waiting implied uncertainty, and uncertainty was something he had stopped feeling approximately 300 years ago. 11 civilizations. That was his count. 11 species that had looked up at his formation and faced the same choice. 8 surrendered within 12 hours. The remaining 3 had required demonstrations. None had required a second one. Earth was not special. It was a mineral-rich biosphere with one sentient species that hadn't yet unified its own governance. They still burned fossil fuel in significant portions of their territory. Their most advanced weapons would register as background noise against ethery shielding. Kaelion had spent more time choosing this morning's departure window than Earth's military had spent building its entire orbital defense network. At her station, Lyra Quinn moved through holographic readouts with practiced efficiency. Slim, silver-skinned, faint circuit-like lines glowing softly along her forearms. Violet eyes tracking 3 data streams simultaneously. King Virex, she said, without turning. Communications traffic indicates they're attempting to identify a negotiation framework. Kaelion made a small sound that wasn't quite amusement. They're looking for a door, he said. There isn't one. He rose and moved toward the navigation bay. The departure sequence was already loaded. Earth's capitulation didn't require his presence. It only required his arrival. The ship shuddered. Subtle, almost imperceptible. But Kaelion had traveled in this vessel for over a century. He knew every frequency of its movement. That was not routine. Lyra's hand stopped. Her eyes shifted. Commander. Her voice was very flat. Very careful. Draven was already crossing the bridge. Navigation core, she continued. Relay junction failure. Tertiary backup, not responding. Cascade fault in the departure sequencing grid. A pause. We cannot depart. Kaelion Virex stood completely still. Around them, Earth continued rotating, entirely unaware that the most powerful being in the known galaxy was now, technically, stuck. The emergency landing was not graceful. Kaelion Virex would prefer that detail to remain unrecorded. The Veiled Dominion, a vessel that had crossed 4-star systems without a single unscheduled stop, descended through Earth's atmosphere under minimal power, navigation crippled, drive systems bleeding reserves. Lyra plotted the closest viable landing zone. Low population, stable terrain, enough clearance for the ship's wingspan. The system selected a mountain valley in rural Colorado. Pine forest. Open meadow. A stream along the eastern ridge. The ship came down hard through the trees, not crashing, but far from the controlled descents Kaelion was accustomed to. Branches raked the hull. Meadow grass flattened under the displacement field. The ship settled at an angle, one landing strut embedded in soft earth. Draven deployed a perimeter team before the ramp fully lowered. 6 soldiers in full armor fanned across the meadow edge, weapons active, visors scanning the treeline, and established a 300-meter exclusion zone in under 4 minutes. Professional. Thorough. Completely unnecessary. The meadow was empty, except for a hillside to the north where a small herd of goats continued grazing as if nothing had happened. One brown goat with a bell collar lifted its head, blinked once at the enormous alien vessel that had just embedded itself in the Earth 30 seconds ago, and went back to eating. Kaelion stepped down the ramp. Mountain air hit him. Cool, thin, carrying pine and soil and the sound of moving water. His cloak panels drifted in the breeze. He surveyed the damaged strut, the scorched grass, the forest walls closing in on every side. He looked like a god who had just missed his train. Fleet response time is approximately 4 hours, Draven said. Kaelion said nothing. Repair team will need 2 to 3 hours after arrival. Still nothing. We wait, Kaelion said finally. Flat. Absolute. He turned back toward the ship. That's when he saw the boy. Malik Carter was not afraid. This was not bravery. Bravery means you've recognized danger and pushed through it anyway. Malik hadn't filed the spacecraft under danger yet. He'd filed it under interesting. He'd been on this hillside since 7 in the morning. His uncle ran a small operation 2 miles down the valley. Goats, sheep, a few chickens, and Malik spent his summer breaks up here for $20 a day and the kind of quiet that most kids his age couldn't tolerate for 20 minutes. He was good at being still, good at watching, good at waiting for things to reveal what they actually were before he decided how to feel about them. He was watching when the sky changed 40 minutes ago. A shadow moving wrong. A sound that wasn't thunder. Then the tree-cracking descent of something enormous settling into the meadow below. He didn't run. He stood, gripped his stick, and watched. Rusty, the brown goat with the bell, pressed against his leg. Malik scratched behind Rusty's ear without taking his eyes off the ship. Soldiers came out first. Then the glowing one in the floating cloak. Then the big, armored one. Then more soldiers spreading across the meadow like they owned it. Malik tilted his head slightly. His expression was the same one he got when a math problem almost made sense, but not quite. Not scared. Just working it out. One soldier spotted him. Pointed. The armored one turned and stared. Malik stared back. Rusty's bell gave a small clank as the goat shifted position and went back to the grass. Inside the ship, Lyra Quinn pulled up the northern hillside visual on her scanner. She focused it. Checked the biometric readout. Checked it again. The child's stress markers were at resting baseline. She opened a channel to Draven. Commander, the child isn't registering a threat response. Malfunction, Draven said. It isn't, she said. She studied the image a moment longer. The calm eyes. The slight tilt of the head. The complete, unbothered stillness. Not normal, she thought. And then, quietly, he's already trying to understand us. Kaelion Virex does not summon the boy. That would imply the boy matters. He tells Draven to clear the hillside. Standard perimeter procedure. The child is a variable. Variables get removed. Draven sends 2 soldiers. They move up the slope in full armor, 7 feet of plated exoskeleton, weapons active, visors locked. Their boots crush the grass in heavy, rhythmic steps. The kind of approach that has made trained soldiers on other worlds drop their weapons and kneel without a single word spoken. Malik watches them come. He doesn't move, doesn't step back, doesn't grip the stick tighter. He just watches, the same quiet tilt of the head, the same expression of a problem not yet solved. Like he's waiting to see what they do next before he decides anything. The soldiers stop 10 feet away. The lead soldier activates a translator node. Standard exclusion warning. The same phrase used on 7 worlds to establish perimeter compliance. It comes out in flat processed English. This zone is restricted. You will move. Malik looks at the soldier, then at the ship below, then back at the soldier. This is my uncle's land, he says. The soldier repeats the warning. Louder. The plasma weapon on his forearm powers up, slow, deliberate, designed to make the threat completely visible. Rusty glances at the glowing weapon, goes back to eating. Malik's eyes follow Rusty for a moment, then return to the soldier. Your light thing is scaring the goats, he says. Can you turn it off? Down in the meadow, Lyra is watching the biometric feed. Heart rate, cortisol, stress response, all resting baseline. Still, she opens a channel to Draven. Commander, the child's threat response isn't activating. Draven stares at the feed. That's a sensor error. I've run it 3 times, she says quietly. It isn't. Draven goes up himself. He doesn't send a 3rd soldier. He goes, because something about the sensor readings is making him feel a specific kind of irritation he doesn't have a name for, and the fastest way to resolve it is to stand in front of the problem personally. He reaches the hillside in 40 seconds. His footsteps are heavy enough to feel in the ground. At full height, fully armored, red visor burning, plasma blades cycling at low hum on both forearms. Draven Rusk is the most physically terrifying thing most species ever encounter in their lives. He stops 5 feet from Malik. He says nothing, just stands there. Lets the presence do what presence is supposed to do. Malik looks up at him, all the way up, takes in the armor, the visor, the weapons, the sheer scale of the thing standing in front of him. Then he says, "You're the angry-looking one." One of the other soldiers makes a sound. Draven silences it with a gesture. He leans down, slowly, deliberately, until his red visor is level with Malik's face. This close, the heat from the armor is noticeable. The low hum of the plasma system is audible. The visor fills Malik's entire field of vision, glowing like something that has ended things before and is completely comfortable doing it again. Move, Draven says. One word. Quiet. Final. Malik doesn't move. He looks at the visor for a moment. Then, with the specific curiosity of someone who has just noticed something genuinely puzzling, he asks, why? Not defiant. Not challenging. Just why? Like the question is obvious and he actually wants to know the answer. Draven straightens up slowly. He stands there for 3 full seconds, and for the first time in a very long time, he doesn't have an answer that feels like it means anything. He opens a channel to Kaelion. The child will not comply. A pause. Then Kaelion's voice, flat and precise. Bring him down. Malik walks down the hill on his own. The soldiers don't touch him. They fall in on either side, and he walks between them like he's being escorted somewhere he was already planning to go. Rusty follows for about 30 meters before losing interest and drifting back to the herd. Kaelion Virex stands at the base of the ship's ramp, hands behind his back, waiting. He watches the child descend the hillside. Notes the pace, unhurried. Notes the posture, straight, relaxed. Notes the expression, that same tilted head observation that Lyra flagged. He processes all of it in approximately 2 seconds and reaches the same conclusion he reaches about everything on this planet. Primitive, undeveloped, irrelevant. But, and this is a very small but barely worth noting, the child is not behaving like any juvenile specimen he has encountered on any world. On every other world, children registered threat faster than adults. Instinct over cognition. They were always the first to run. This one walked toward him. Malik stops about 6 feet away. Looks up. All the way up, 8 feet of glass pale alien king, floating cloak panels drifting, white blue eyes with no pupils looking down at him like he's a mildly interesting geological feature. For a moment, neither of them says anything. Then Malik says, "Your ship is broken." Not a question, a statement. Kaelion looks at him for one long beat. "Yes," he says. "That's why you're still here," Malik says. "Yes." Malik nods slowly. Like that explains several things he was already working out. "Okay," he says. "Just okay. Like this is useful information and he's filed it appropriately, and now they can move on." Lyra, watching from inside, pulls up a new biometric scan. Still resting baseline. She looks at the king, then at the child, then back at her readout. He's not processing this as a threat at all, she thinks. He's processing it as a situation. Kaelion decides to make a point. Not because the child requires one. Because the situation does. He has soldiers watching. He has Draven watching. He has Lyra watching. And there is something vaguely incorrect about the posture of this interaction. Something in the geometry of it that doesn't align with how these encounters are supposed to unfold. He crouches, slowly, until his white-blue eyes are level with Malik's. This close, the blue light under his skin is clearly visible, pulsing slowly, like something electric moving through glass. His eyes fill Malik's field of vision the same way Draven's visor did. Except this is not a soldier. This is the thing that gives soldiers their orders. "Do you know what I am?" Kaelion asks. Malik thinks about it. Genuinely thinks, a brief pause of actual consideration. "An alien," he says. "I am a king," Kaelion says. "I have conquered 11 civilizations. I have ended wars before they began. Every species that has stood where you are standing has surrendered or been removed." He pauses. "Do you understand what I'm telling you?" Malik nods. "You win a lot." Something shifts almost imperceptibly in Kaelion's expression. Not anger, not amusement. Something in between, a very faint recalibration. "Yes," he says carefully. "I win." "How come?" Malik asks. The question lands in a silence that lasts slightly too long. How come? Not how. Not with what weapons or what strategy. Just how come. The way a child asks how come the sky is blue. Not because they're challenging the sky, but because they actually want to know the mechanism. Kaelion straightens up. "Because I am stronger," he says. Malik considers this. Looks at the ship. Looks at the soldiers. Looks back at Kaelion. "Is that all?" he asks. Draven, behind the king, goes very still. "Is that all?" Kaelion stands. Turns slightly away. Not retreat, just repositioning. He is 300 years old. He has debated philosophers, broken negotiators, silenced generals. He does not need to justify himself to a child in a field. But the question is sitting in his chest in a way he doesn't have a category for. "Strength is sufficient," he says. "It has always been sufficient." "But you're stuck," Malik says. Not cruel, not triumphant, just factual. The same tone he'd used to point out that the fence gate was open. "Your ship broke," Malik continues. "And now you have to wait. All that strength, and you're still just waiting." He pauses. Looks at the damaged landing strut. "Same as me." Kaelion looks at him. "You are waiting," Kaelion says slowly. "Because you herd animals for money. $20 a day," Malik confirms. "My uncle pays me. And you see no difference between that situation and mine." Malik tilts his head. "I mean, you're both waiting for someone else to fix something, aren't you?" The meadow is very quiet. Somewhere uphill, Rusty's bell gives a small sound as the goat moves through the grass. Lyra has stopped pretending to run diagnostics. She is watching the interaction on her monitor with complete attention, long silver fingers resting still for the first time since the fault alarm triggered. She has traveled with Kaelion Virex for 11 years. She has watched him dismantle civilizations with 3 sentences. She has never seen him pause like this. She pulls up a new file on her display, starts a fresh observation log, and titles it simply, "The Child." The sun is lower now. The meadow light has shifted from gold to amber, long shadows stretching across the grass. The alien ship's hull catching the last warm light of afternoon and throwing it back cold and blue. Kaelion Virex has not moved from the center of the meadow. Neither has Malik. This was supposed to be a brief inconvenience. It has become something else. "Tell me something," Kaelion says. His voice is exactly as controlled as it always is. "You are aware that your species has been given an ultimatum, that your leaders are, at this moment, deciding whether to surrender." "Yeah," Malik says. "And you are here, on a hillside, watching animals." "That's my job," Malik says. "Someone's got to watch them." "You feel no urgency." Malik thinks about this genuinely. "I mean, what would I do? I'm 10. They're not going to call me." 11, Kaelion says, and then stops. Because he has just corrected a child's age without being asked, which means he has been paying more attention to this conversation than he intended. Malik notices. The eyes sharpen slightly. "You've been scanning me," Malik says. Not accusation. Observation. Kaelion does not answer. "That's okay," Malik says. "I've been studying you too." The words land quietly. But they land. Draven, standing 8 feet back, shifts his weight, the first involuntary movement he's made in 20 minutes. Lyra, inside the ship, adds a second entry to the observation log. Her violet eyes haven't left the monitor. Kaelion looks at the boy for a long moment. "What have you learned?" he asks. And the fact that he asks, the fact that he wants to know, is already the answer to a question neither of them has spoken aloud yet. "You're scared," Malik says. The meadow goes very still. Draven's visor snaps toward the boy. His arm weapons cycle up 1 notch. Involuntary, like a reflex. Kaelion raises one hand slightly. Draven stands down. "Elaborate," Kaelion says. One word. Quiet. The kind of quiet that has preceded the end of things. Malik isn't intimidated by the quiet. He thinks in it. "You came all the way here," he says slowly, working it out as he speaks. "You sent the message to every screen at once. Not just the leaders, everyone. You wanted everyone scared, not just the people making decisions." He pauses. "That's not what someone does when they're sure they're gonna win. That's what someone does when they want it to be over fast." The amber light moves across the meadow. "You've done this 11 times, Malik continues. "And every time, you needed them to give up quickly. Because if they don't," he stops, tilts his head. "What happens if they don't?" Kaelion says nothing. And the nothing is an answer. Malik nods slowly, like a piece just clicked into place. "It cost you something," Malik says. "Waiting cost you something. That's why you wanted to leave fast. That's why the broken ship is a real problem, not just inconvenient. Actually a problem." Inside the ship, Lyra has stopped breathing at her normal rate. She is looking at her strategic assessment files she compiled on Earth's surrender probability, resource extraction timelines, fleet maintenance windows, and she is seeing them differently than she did this morning. She opens a new subfile in the observation log. She titles it, "He Found the Edge." Kaelion Virex makes a decision. He will answer, not because he owes an answer, because he has spent 300 years watching species try to find his edges, generals, diplomats, philosophers, and none of them ever got close enough to deserve a response. This child has gotten close enough. The intellectual honesty of that demands acknowledgement, even if the acknowledgement costs him something. "Extended campaigns carry risk," he says. "Fleet resources. Political exposure within the Ethery Council. Time." He pauses. "Speed is not preference. Speed is strategy." Malik absorbs this. Nods. "So you're not actually all-powerful," he says. "You're just faster than everyone else at making them think you are." The words are not cruel. They're just accurate. The way a child identifies something adults have spent years agreeing not to say out loud. Kaelion looks at him for a long time. "You are 10 years old," he says. 11, Malik says. And Kaelion, for the first time in 300 years, almost smiles. It doesn't quite make it to his face. But something shifts in the blue light under his skin. A different pulse. Slightly warmer. "Where did you learn to think this way?" Kaelion asks. Malik shrugs. "I watch things. I wait for them to show me what they actually are. He glances at Rusty on the hillside. My uncle says most things tell you the truth eventually. You just have to be quiet long enough to hear it. Kaelion is quiet. He looks at the hillside, the goat, the stream, the pine forest pressing in. A 10-mile radius of mountain wilderness that his fleet's sensors flagged as zero-threat terrain. Zero threat, he thinks. His gaze returns to Malik. Your uncle, he says carefully, is a wise man. Can I ask you something? Malik says. You have been asking me things continuously, Kaelion says. Yeah, but this one's different. Malik looks up at him. All those civilizations you conquered, what happened to them? After. Kaelion answers without hesitation. They became part of the E3 framework. Resources redistributed. Governance restructured. Populations integrated. Did they want that? A pause. Relevance of want decreases significantly when the alternative is removal, Kaelion says. Malik thinks about this. So they didn't want it. They adapted. That's not the same thing. Malik's voice is still calm. Still level. Not angry, just precise. Wanting to adapt and having to adapt are different. One of them is a choice. Kaelion says nothing. My uncle had to adapt, Malik says. When the big farming companies moved in and undercut everyone, he had to switch to goats and small livestock or lose everything. He adapted. A pause. But he didn't want to. And he never forgot the difference. The meadow is very quiet. He still talks about it, Malik says. 11 years later. People don't forget when the choice gets taken away. They just get quieter about it. He looks up at Kaelion. Is that what your 11 civilizations did? Got quieter. Kaelion Virex stands completely still. In 300 years, across 11 conquests, not one diplomat, not one general, not one planetary leader has ever asked him that question. He doesn't have an answer prepared. He has never needed one. The fleet arrives like a second sunset. From the east, beyond the Pine Ridge, the sky changes color. Not gradually, suddenly. A deep blue-white luminescence pushing over the mountain horizon, growing brighter, spreading wider, until the treeline is lit from above like midday arriving from the wrong direction. Then the ships appear. 14 vessels in tight formation, smaller than the Veiled Dominion, but still vast. Each one blocking a section of stars as they cross overhead, running lights pulsing in the same slow rhythm as Kaelion's skin. They take up position above the meadow in under 3 minutes. Precise. Disciplined. The repair crew is already deploying before the lead vessel finishes its descent. Arc Draven straightens. His posture shifts. The visible recalibration of a soldier whose backup has arrived and whose authority feels restored. He moves toward Kaelion. Fleet is on station, he says. Repair team has the junction. Estimated 90 minutes to full departure capability. He pauses. Glances at Malik. We can leave the exclusion team. The child will be released once we clear atmosphere. Kaelion doesn't respond immediately. He is looking at the ships overhead, then at the meadow, then at Malik, who is also looking at the ships, head tilted back, watching them move into position with the same quiet focus he uses for everything. No panic. No awe. Just observation. He's not scared of those either. Lyra says quietly from the ship's bay door. She isn't talking to anyone specifically. Draven's visor turns toward her. It doesn't matter. It does, she says. It means something we don't have a file for. The repair team fans out across the meadow toward the damaged strut, tools active, moving fast. The operation is efficient and practiced. They have done emergency field repairs in worse conditions on stranger worlds. Malik watches them work. 90 minutes, he says. Kaelion looks at him. That's how long you have left, Malik says. With me. He says it simply, like he's noting the time on a clock. After that you leave and make your decision. The decision was made before I arrived, Kaelion says. Malik nods. I know. A pause. Is it still the same one? Kaelion walks. Not toward the ship. Away from it. Across the meadow. Toward the stream along the eastern ridge. His cloak panels drift behind him in the evening air. He doesn't invite Malik. He doesn't tell him to stay. Malik follows anyway. They stand at the stream's edge. The water moves over smooth stones, catching the fleet light from above and breaking it into fragments. It's the most ordinary sound in the meadow, indifferent to ships, to ultimatums, to the most powerful being in 4-star systems standing on its bank. Kaelion looks at the water for a long moment. In my first conquest, he says, The species sent a philosopher to negotiate. Not a general. Not a diplomat. A philosopher. He pauses. I found it insulting. I gave them 6 hours instead of 72. Malik listens. The philosopher said one thing before I ended the session. He said, the measure of a civilization is not what it can destroy. It is what it chooses not to. Kaelion watches the water move. I had him removed. I have thought about what he said approximately once every 30 years since. Malik is quiet for a moment. What do you think he meant? Malik asks. I knew what he meant, Kaelion says. I chose not to consider it relevant. And now, the stream moves. The fleet lights pulse overhead. Somewhere up the hillside, Rusty's bell sounds once, small and clear and completely real in the cold evening air. Kaelion turns and looks at the boy beside him. Really looks, the way he looked at star maps when he was young, before conquest became routine. With the specific attention of something being memorized. You are 11 years old, he says. You herd animals in a mountain field. You have no weapons, no authority, no strategic position. He pauses. And you have done more damage to my certainty in 90 minutes than 11 civilizations did in 11 campaigns. Malik looks up at him. I didn't try to damage anything, he says. I know, Kaelion says. That is precisely the problem. Draven appears at the meadow's edge. King Virex. His voice carries across the grass. Repair is complete. We are departure ready. Kaelion doesn't move immediately. Draven waits, then walks closer. His red visor scans the scene. The king, the boy, the stream, the absence of anything he has a tactical response to. His hand moves toward his forearm weapon out of pure habit. Stops. The ultimatum window is still open, Draven says, quieter now. 61 hours remaining. Earth's government has not surrendered, but has not formally refused. We proceed as planned. Kaelion turns from the stream. He looks at Draven for a long moment. The enforcer who has stood beside him for 40 years. Who has never questioned a decision. Who has executed every order with the focused loyalty of someone who genuinely believes that strength is the only language that matters. Then he looks at Malik. The boy is watching both of them. Measuring. Not the weapons, not the armor, measuring the space between them. The dynamic. The way Draven looks at the king, and the way the king looks at the boy, and what all of it adds up to. What do you think we should do? Kaelion asks. He is asking Malik. Draven goes absolutely still. Malik thinks about it. Doesn't rush. The way he does everything. Waits for the answer to show itself before he reaches for it. I think, Malik says slowly, that you already know what you want to do. You're just checking if it's okay to do it. The meadow holds its breath. Draven's visor moves from the boy to the king. Something in the red glow flickers, not equipment malfunction. Something else. Lyra, watching from the ship's bay, closes the observation log. She doesn't need to add anything more. The file is complete. She already knows how this ends. Kaelion Virex turns to face the ship. He stands straight. Cloak panels settle. The blue light under his skin pulses slow and even. For a moment, he is exactly what he was when he arrived. Absolute. Ancient. Unreadable. Then he turns back to Malik. And he bows. Not deep. Not theatrical. A precise, deliberate inclination of the head. The kind that in ethery culture is reserved for equals. Not inferiors. Not conquered species. Not diplomatic formalities. Equals. I came to this world to end a conversation before it began, he says. You forced me to have it anyway. A pause. I am not accustomed to being wrong. I am less accustomed to being shown wrong by someone who wasn't trying to show me anything. Malik watches him. Doesn't interrupt. I will be withdrawing the ultimatum, Kaelion says. Earth will not be incorporated into the ethery framework at this time. Behind him, Draven's visor goes dark for exactly 1 second. A system responds to input it wasn't built to process. Then it comes back online. He says nothing. He is a soldier. He follows orders. But the set of his shoulders is different than it was this morning. Something rearranged behind the armor that won't fully rearrange back. Why? Malik asks. Kaelion is quiet for a moment. Because the philosopher was right, he says. And it took me 300 years and 11 civilizations and 1 broken ship in a mountain field to find someone patient enough to make me admit it. He straightens, looks at the hillside. At Rusty, a small brown shape in the last of the light. Bell silent now, grazing at the edge of the dark. Take care of your animals, Kaelion says. I will, Malik says. And your uncle's land. Always. Kaelion holds his gaze for one final moment. Then he walks up the ramp. The bay door closes. The fleet above shifts formation. 14 ships repositioning in sequence. The veiled dominion rising from the meadow floor on repaired drive systems. Scorched grass flattening again under displacement fields. Pine branches bending as the vessel climbs. Malik stands in the meadow and watches them go. He doesn't cheer. Doesn't pump his fist. Doesn't do anything except stand exactly the way he stood all afternoon. Still, watching, waiting for things to show him what they actually are. The fleet clears the ridge. The meadow goes quiet. Rusty walks down the hillside and presses against Malik's leg. Malik reaches down and scratches behind the goat's ear without looking. Above them, the stars return, one by one, filling back in where the ships used to be, until the sky looks exactly the way it did this morning. Except that it isn't. Nothing is.